Final Stop, Brazil, Book 2, Life After Hell, Chapter 57, Homesick for Säo Paulo. After his bollocking, the boss gave me now much more work, but it was all completely pointless. So I had absolutely no time to take care of coconut shells, nor worry about Ratinho, and certainly not for Maurice. As for now, he controlled me every moment. I still didn't go to lunch, so I could at least correspond with Maurice. At this time, we had by now confessed that he was one of those candidates who had been reading but ignoring, that I only wished acquaintances from Salvador, and still wrote to me from Säo Paulo. I had received a lot of nice and promising responses from Säo Paulo. However, I had rejected all of them because I didn't want a distant relationship. Maurice, however, stayed focused and remained still on the ball every day. We chatted live, and I was confiding every time more in Maurice. Believed that he was very intelligent and humorous. Between us had developed a very deep and trustworthy basis, although I still didn't know how he looked like. He was sharing my daily life, and I believed that it was mutual. In my daily efforts to escape the miserable life, he gave me a lot of courage and motivation. Whenever we didn't meet in the live chat, he always left me a very affectionate email. If I read or found nothing of him, I was missing something. But what should it been good for? He was far away in Säo Paulo. Like all that meant something for me, I had gotten used to, and what had become a part of me. My friends, Transcontinental, Clayton, Bishotti, Isalta Samba, even the television programs. I had long since regretted it bitterly to have come to Salvador, especially since after the first weeks here, when I had received an email from the language school, where I had applied for a job when I met Marcelo, with an acceptance. At that time, I was still so enthusiastic to believe that here it was so much better. In Säo Paulo was found an internet cafe at every corner, and I would have long been much further with my book. That was really what struck me the most. Instead of finishing my book, I wasted my time with meaningless DVDs. It had long been puked on me to be dependent on the generosity of Italva and Icaro. Whenever I expressed my thoughts, Italva had even offered to buy a computer for me, which I could then pay off in installments. But what for? After paying off the installments, I would not even have money left over for an internet access. This is very expensive in Brazil, especially in Bahia, with about 100 reais per month. Many people here distribute the connections, the cables, crisscrossing the streets and sharing the costs. Icaro was doing the same. I tried to convince myself that this would be over after next week, when the man from Germany finally sent the €1,000 so I could buy myself a notebook. Unfortunately, my intuition, which had never fooled me, said that there was something wrong. But first, my thoughts were somewhere else. I seriously thought about if it was worth it at all to stay in Bahia, and came to the conclusion it was not. I didn't want to end up like Liege, who was with 64 years still hoping for the great love, or like Angela, numbing the loneliness with countless bottles of beer. And Italva, she still had Icaro. But what would be if he left the nest one day? There was a man for whom it would have been worth it to go on as before, to feel the cold in the office every day and perform senseless tasks, trying desperately to get along with the monthly salary. That would have been Gio. Another man for whom I also would have remained was my bus driver. I knew long that it was more than just a flirt. His eyes had not these horny looks like all the others. He repeatedly showed me by these thoughtless gestures and touches that my feelings were not one-sided. One morning, when I was still sleepy, strolling in the direction of the bus stop, looking thoughtless at the driver of a truck loading something, as I got startled by a blown horn. It was my bus driver. who remarked obviously, "You're distracted, plentiful this morning, hmm?" He would have been the right man for me, but unfortunately he was married, and apparently one of the few here who were at least physically faithful. But to find one, I was probably 30 years too late. For a while I didn't see him. I missed him. When he finally drove the bus again, I already no longer figured. I clearly saw his joy at seeing me again. I sat as usual at the front across of him. "It's been a long time. Have you been on vacation?" "No, they have sent me on another route, Vilas Atlantico. And you? You were also gone. Where were you?" "As you see, I'm still here, in the same place." The bus was filling, and he had to focus on the chaotic traffic and the needs of the passengers. But on every occasion or stop, our eyes met and spoke for themselves. Not for the first time, I noticed that the passengers in the front seats also noticed that sparks were flying between us. They followed every word, every glance between us. Just before I had arrived, he asked a question I had to laugh about, but probably he couldn't think of nothing better. He just wanted to say something. "Are you still working there in the hotel?" "Did you think I'm going back and forth for fun? I still work in the hotel, but I will soon work for a German company. It gets me more money." "Can you help me also with another job?" I looked at him and saw that he was serious. I remembered that the German asked me to look for a driver who also served as a bodyguard. There was no time, so I said just before getting off, "We'll talk about it." With the already obligatory deep look and the lovely, breezy ciao with his hoarse voice, our ways parted. It was the last time I saw him. Restless, I kept waking up, rolling back and forth on my cheap mattress, which caused me severe back pain. With a feeling as if I got whacked, feeling miserable already, I got up. With difficulty, I prepared coffee, smoked too many cigarettes, and left the house shortly after 6 a.m. Recently, I pursued a new tactic and worked on my emails early in the morning before my official start at 8 o'clock. Carlos, our caretaker, greeted me with a warning, "The old man is up already and gets on everyone's nerves this morning." Oh, this could be fun. I hurried into the office to have as much time as possible. I had not much time for my emails, but at first glance I discovered that Maurice had thought of me. "I came across to wish you a nice weekend, my dear. Very big kiss from Maurice." The German had sent an email, but unfortunately it was not what I had expected. But I knew that my feelings didn't deceive me. He wrote that he had paved the way for a contract. I would only need to send a job apply and a CV in English to his Polish company. In addition, I should write a salary requirement in a smaller scale, plus commission for sales. Suspicious, I asked what he envisioned in the content of a smaller scale, and this was promptly followed by the response, €500, a conversion value of about 1,200 reais, plus commission. As for the bank transfer, he could not handle this in the name of another person. This was against the company policy. A transfer via Western Union was only possible for private people, but not for business. Thus he had to pay now the money out of his own pocket. This was not too nice, so his comment. At the same time, he showered me with many tasks. However, and the price of the coconut shell should be further pushed down to $35 per ton. FOB. I continued to read no more. The dream was destroyed. This man took advantage of my skills, but at the same time of my plight. I knew it, but didn't want to give up my hope and not really believe it. Until noon, I had an inner battle with myself whether I should write the application, hoping that he then sent the money if he believed that I agreed with his lousy salary. Meanwhile, my boss was getting terribly on my nerves when he asked me every half hour how far I was with my work. It was nothing important, totally unnecessary, and therefore no hurry for it. Clearly, he was looking for something to bollock me again. Finally, Murillo defended me when my boss complained that I was working too slow, and I should have been finished with this task since I had started on Thursday. Boss, Rita has begun Friday afternoon, and therefore she cannot be ready yet. Nevertheless, for the first time since I started my work here, I lost my composure when Murillo asked me to answer an email from a new prospective buyer. Ironically, he was the one who got the full load from me. Nothing I will do. I'm doing this shit here. The old man had pressed on me and nothing else. Do that other shit yourself. This, of course, he couldn't, because he spoke no English. The same morning, I received a call from Säo Paulo, a provider of coconut shells. Ice cold, I demanded the price of $35. Let him drop out of the business. I didn't care. Also, I was not eating breakfast. I spent the lunch break to use at least the time to answer some messages on Orkut and emails. But I didn't get far because Italva called me to tell me that the vendor had called her first. Italva's landline number was published in my ads in order to be always available. At the edge of my nerves, I tried to make it short, but that was not easy with Italva. She offered me, "Why don't you come over tonight? Icaro is not home before 8 o'clock. You can do some work until then or not." I doubted it. With this miserable bus to Stella Maris. Why I accepted, I didn't know myself. At least, I could still write half of my job application before I had the old man on my back again. "Moraes, where are you today? I would need your presence today a lot." In the afternoon, I managed nothing else beside my work anymore. A glance at my email showed me that there was no movement anyhow. An hour later, I was waiting at the bus stop without the bus to Stella Maris being in sight. "Where on earth are you?" Italva asked incredulously when I told her that I was still in Pituaçu at the bus stop. "Then take a bus to Itapuã. Meet me there." Why did I allow myself to be persuaded for this? Waste of time and money. In Itapuã, I waited at the meeting point in vain for Italva, who called me now again. From the other end of Itapuã. Great. It was already 7. By the time we would be in Stella Maris, Icaro would also arrive, and finally I had to wobble back home. I had enough, called it off, and had to pay more now for nothing at all, because I had to take another bus. It was all too much for me. I could not and didn't want to endure any more. Only now I realized that my dream was shattered. How should I raise a business like this German was figuring from this offered salary? How should I pay to regain my lost driving license as he required? The driving license and a car you need definitely if you work for my company, let alone a car. What about the costs for the lawyer? 1,200 reais salary minus 460 reais for the lawyer. I would have to pay for 10 long months, which left me with 740 reais, less than I had at the moment. And with this, I would be traveling, buying clothes to be able to represent. That was totally unrealistic. On the bus, I could no longer hold back my tears, no matter what the other passengers thought of me. At home, I was overcome by sobs about the fact that I seemingly never would be coming out of this situation.